1175 print quality. The print quality of the 1175 can be affected by the height of the printhead. The height of the printhead is adjusted using the lifter knob below the feeder, which will raise the clamshell higher or lower based off how you turn it. Turning it to the right will move the clamshell up, as I'll demonstrate. You can see that the whole assembly is moving up, and there's a maximum of about 3/8 of an inch in height. The knob gets harder to turn as it reaches that maximum. To lower, turn it counterclockwise, and you will see the entire clamshell drops down and sits about flush with the table. The knob also gets harder to turn when it reaches a maximum. If the clamshell is too far down for the media thickness, if you run thicker stock, you might have to raise the clamshell in order to accommodate for that thicker stock. However, note if your clamshell is too far up, you will suffer with print quality since the head will be too far from the paper. I will demonstrate that now. So if I raise my head up and I run a job, a good job to run here is going to be the printhead height test. You can go to adding a file. We'll navigate to the C drive, iJet color, test images, and we'll scroll down until we find printhead height test number 10. Opening that job up, and we will print 3 of these, and these should show us how that print quality is looking. In this case, as you can see, our head is actually so far up that the sensor cannot tell that the media is passing below. So if I drop this down, eventually the sensor is close enough so it can read, but you can see how terrible our output is. So this is what happens when the head is too far from the paper. So if you see very distorted text or very strong lines throughout your print, you may have an issue with the height. So again, to lower down the clamshell, you'll turn your knob counterclockwise. And by moving that all the way down, we will now try our print again and look at our output. That looks a lot better. So compared to our previous output, this is what it should look like when it's sitting at 0. However, the print quality can also be affected if you change the pen to paper spacing in your settings. So if you navigate to the gear icon in the right hand middle corner, you will then see an adjustment in here called pen to paper spacing. The default value that you usually will keep it on is 5100. However, you can change this if you are getting scuffing on your media and you want to make the head, that is the actual print bar, sit slightly above the media instead of dropping all the way down. So sometimes for particular jobs, if you get scuffing that you cannot avoid, you might have to raise the value of that so it actually does not come down as far. To make it drop less, you would put in a smaller number. So I would change it from 5100 default to maybe 5080 or 5060. You'll want to change in increments of 20 and print and see how your output looks. If you change it to a value smaller than 5000, the head is typically too far from the paper and your print quality will severely suffer. I'll demonstrate it now with that at a value of 4,000, just so you can see how that print quality is going to suffer compared to our last print. So as you can see, 5100, the default that you should run on, and a value of 4000 to dramatically show the effects of what happens when that head is too far. When it drops down from a great distance, the ink spreads and it has a very terrible output. So again, your default value for that when you're running your standard stock should be 5100, and the default lift height for your clamshell should be all the way down at 0. However, you might have to raise it if you're running larger media, or if you're running, stock that keeps scuffing, you can play with your pen to paper spacing. It is totally fine to move it in increments of 20, so long as you don't exceed a value smaller than 5,000.